Hello, and welcome back to another edition of Come Back Stronger. I'm Dana Brooks of Fasig Brooks, and I'm joined today with my law partner, Kimmy Hogan.
Hey, everybody.
Yeah, you're on the other side of the camera this time. You're on the desk this time, so how's that feel?
Oh, I love it. I've been having so much fun getting to meet all these incredible people and hearing their stories, but it's fun to be over here too, especially the story we have today where Carrie Roan went and did an interview. Four-parter. Yeah, this is going to be two shows, y'all. This is a big one. This one couldn't be done in just two parts in one show, so we're going to do two shows. And we had Jimmy Fasig and Carrie Roan, our other law partners who help us with the show. They had some conflicts, so we got Kimmy here in front of the camera today. And Kimmy, you have had to travel to some of these interviews, but Carrie Roan just traveled last week to Austin, Texas, to see our guest today to interview JeVon McCormick, and she had to go through quite a bit of storms. We all heard about the freezing. She says, I love it here, and I just got here, and then all of a sudden, you know, I'm locked in and I'm freezing. So hopefully you haven't had to deal with any of that in your travels. Oh, well, it's been sunny where I've gone. I haven't had to go buy new winter clothing yet.
Yeah, she got the short end of the stick. No, this guy, he's so incredible, and we were so lucky that he made some time for us, and it was no trouble going to Austin to meet him because he has such an incredible story. You talk about Carrie struggling to meet him, but when you hear about his struggles, you go, okay. Okay, now he knows from struggles, so he's just an incredible person. We've had the benefit of seeing those interviews, and he struggled with so much, and he's a mixed race individual, and that was a problem. Part of his struggles, his identity. Where do I fit in? Because he was finding that he wasn't getting much acceptance in black communities, white communities. He was the other, you know, and then he didn't have, you know, parents who had it together when they were trying to parent him and his siblings. So this is going to be a really touching first section. What you've looked at it. What were your thoughts on the first section we're about to see?
Well, I just love how he gives us his background, and you see that he's, as a young kid, was somebody who had no direction.
None.
And so he ended up in juvenile prison a couple of times, and it wasn't until, you know, an officer said to him, look, if you come back, you're going to man prison, as he says. And he realized, wow, I really need to pull myself up by my bootstraps and really start taking a better look at my life.
Yeah, and he's like so many of the people we hear from, they're not just charged with having to raise themselves, which is enough. That's quite enough, but people like JeVon, a lot of times they're responsible when the adults leave. They're responsible for the children remaining at home, and they're just children themselves. And his story about what he had to do and the situations under which he and his siblings were left unattended without food for days at a time, and the things that he had to do, not so that they could live as his mother described it, but so they could survive. So I'm really excited about this first segment, and so we're going to have a short break, and we'll be back right after this.
And you know what the insurance company offered him? $5,000. Really? He's completely blind, and they offer him $5,000. Yeah. Ask him to sign a release.
To a lot of people, especially when they're hurting and when they're down and when they're vulnerable, $5,000 is a life-changing amount of money. Yeah. And they're not looking at the value of what has been lost. They're not looking at what it would take to make that person whole, which is our job. Yeah. That's our job. Their job isn't. Their job is to save the insurance company money. Right. And they look at this person and they go, I bet $5,000 would get your full attention. Right. And they come in and they dangle it with a settlement release, and then once you sign it, you're done. You can't come back to us and ask us to wave a magic wand and make that go away. That can't go away.
My client didn't accept the $5,000. We took him all the way to trial. We got a $5 million verdict.
Yeah, I'm excited about this first segment. JeVon is a natural leader, despite the fact that he was thrust into an environment he had no preparation for. His story is inspiring, and it's a long one. It's going to take a while just to show you his journey before we can even get back to the Come Back Stronger. So we're going to start with the first segment right now.
So JeVon McCormick, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
You're such an interesting story, and you know, you came essentially from the ghetto in Ohio and have become this CEO of a publishing company now, and you have such a fascinating story. I want to talk all about it. But first, when I came in, I called you JT, and you said, I don't like to be called JT anymore. So what's that all about?
All right, so I'm going to give you the story behind this.
Yeah.
So in my early 20s, so I'm 49. So we're going back to early 90s.
Yeah.
In my early 20s, when I was trying to get on people's calendars, land appointments, could not get on people's calendars. So one gentleman was nice enough to get on the phone with me. And he asked me, he said, hey, how did you get a black first name in an Irish last name?
Right.
Because my name's JeVon McCormick.
Yeah.
And what was funny is that was the first time I knew my last name was Irish. I had never heard that before. So I laughed and I was like, oh, wow, I just found out my last name's Irish.
So people couldn't figure you out from paper.
People couldn't figure me, and so, but they saw JeVon. And so when I hung up the call, I said, oh, that's why I'm not getting appointments. So my name's JeVon Thomas McCormick. So I said, okay, I'm going to go by JT. I'll be damned if the next week I didn't get on people's calendars. It filled up because you didn't know who JT McCormick was.
Isn't that terrible, though? So they're making a race-based judgment based on your first name.
Based on the name.
That's awful.
And I say this to people all the time. Whether we want to admit this as a society or not, if you went to Harvard, Princeton, and Yale, you went to all three, but at the top of that resume, it says Martavius Johnson, you're judged before anyone even gets down to where you went to school. So, back during the George Floyd murder, when the protests started happening, I made the decision to change my name to JeVon. And the reason being was I found what was going on at the time to be incredibly shallow and status signaling. And so I said, okay, wait a minute. Blackout Tuesday on social media. We're arguing over a syrup bottle. And I said to myself, this is ridiculous. So I read an article, and it said that there were only 3 black Fortune 500 CEOs. And the names are Marvin Ellison, and I love these guys because they've got to the top of the game. So Marvin Ellison, Kenneth Frazier, and Roger Ferguson. So 3 very ambiguous, ethnic-free names.
Right.
And I said to myself, wow, there's no JeVon there. And so I said, that's it. Okay, I've made it to the CEO chair. I'm going to change my name and start going by JeVon. And it wasn't so much for me, it was for all of those kids, the Martavius, the Rayvante, the LaQuanda, the Lucretia, all of the ethnic kids that I grew up with, so they could see, okay, wow, a JeVon made it to the CEO chair.
A guy just like me.
Yes.
Somebody from my hood made it to the CEO chair.
Made it to the CEO chair.
So what was your childhood like?
Oh gosh, you opened a door there, didn't you? So my dad was black. He was a black man, and he was a pimp and drug dealer in the 70s. And along the way, he fathered 23 children.
Wow.
I'm one of 23.
Wow.
And my mother is white, and I'm her only child. But my mother grew up in an orphanage, 1950s institutional orphanage where the kids were neglected, beat, abused.
Oh, that's terrible. In Ohio, right?
In Ohio.
Okay.
So when she turned 17 years old, they gave her a small suitcase, $20, and said, good luck, there's the world.
She didn't get adopted.
No.
Oh my God.
No, she grew up in the orphanage.
And so you said earlier something that was interesting too. Your last name is McCormick,
Yes.
which is your mom's last name.
My mom's last name. When my mom went into labor, my dad was nowhere around. So when my mom had me, I was all she had in the world. She didn't have any family either, so she goes, I'm going to give him my last name. Problem is, my mom got that last name in the orphanage. We have no clue where this name comes from. She has no clue why, where, how she was given the last name. So here I am today. And it's actually, for me, I'm very proud of it because it's like I've got to create my own legacy. So I love the fact, my 4 children, last name McCormick, my wife's last name's McCormick. So it's actually a big deal for me now that, okay, this is our legacy that we've created.
And so when you were growing up, it was rough for you, right? You had a single mom, and you made some pretty bad choices as a kid, right? So what were some of the bad things that you did and the things that landed you in juvie?
So, yes, growing up, harsh. My mother and I, we were on welfare, lived in public housing, and you got to remember, this is the 70s,
right? In early 80s,
and I was mixed race. So half white, half black in the 70s, not a good look.
And with no dad around.
With no dad around.
Yeah.
You know, occasionally he would pick me up, but...
And this weird McCormick last name that doesn't really fit in with the black culture, and then you also didn't really fit in with the white culture with the JeVon name.
Exactly.
Right.
Black people didn't like me because I was half white. White people didn't like me because I was half black. I was never white enough. I was never black enough. So, you know, as a kid, you have this identity crisis. You're constantly called zebra, Oreo cookie, half-breed. Oh, yeah. It was harsh. And to make it worse, it wasn't so much what I went through. It was watching what my mother had to go through. Watching people spit in her face and call her the N-word lover. And there was nothing you could do about it. Being evicted from public housing because they didn't want race mixing in the public housing. So you're coming home, all of your belongings are on the lawn, and the manager comes out and he says, no N-word lovers can live here.
Oh my God,
so
I can't even imagine.
That was harsh.
Yeah.
But you learn a lot. And
well, so let me interrupt you for a second though.
Yeah.
So it seems to me that you'd want to protect your mom from all that, right? You're kind of the man of the household, but yet it seems like you made a decision to go in a different route, right? Yeah. So,
you know, as a child, you don't want to see your mother go through it, but at the same time, you don't really know how to protect your mother. You know, when I was with my dad on those occasional weekends, I watched my dad collect money from prostitutes. I knew it was going to be chaotic. I watched my dad's house be raided by law enforcement.
Oh my gosh.
I watched him go to jail and be taken away in handcuffs. So it was just chaos all the time. I frequently went to bed on Friday night and didn't eat again until I went to school on Monday and got my free government welfare lunch to eat.
Gosh.
So it was chaotic.
Wow. Let's talk about it a little bit more when we get back.
Wow, that's just the first segment. What do you think?
I think it's so cool about how he changed his name back from JT to JeVon.
Yeah.
You know, in our Empower Plan group on Facebook, we always talk about the importance of representation, of having women at high levels of government and companies, and the same thing, showing diversity.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a meaningful way for him to kind of go back to his roots.
Yeah, and I think he probably had a stunning realization that despite his history and probably how he identifies, he recognizes now he's in a position of privilege.
Yes.
And he has a voice, and he can use it to help people behind him come up and have a better experience. So he's impressive. So we'll learn more about him right after this.
It's also important to have lawyers who understand the juries.
100%.
So where you grow up in a place and you understand what makes people from that place proud. And in the Panhandle, what is that? Well, we have the world's whitest sand beaches, the beautiful nature of the place, but also the strong connection to the armed forces.
Yes. It's important to hire a lawyer who understands the culture of where you're going to be and has an idea of the kind of people who will be on the jury should you have to try the case. And you better believe the insurance companies who will be deciding the value of the case, they look into that.
I once had a case where the attorney was from Chicago and he came down to this area in the Panhandle and he kept talking about Wakulla, but he didn't know how to say Wakulla. And it came out all different sorts of ways, and I thought, oh man, if you get in front of a jury down here.
Yeah, JeVon's going to tell us this next segment a little bit more detail about that childhood Carrie opened the door for. This one will hit you in the gut, I think. Take a look.
So you've got kind of a chaotic life going on with your dad, a little bit more stability with your mom, and you're caught in between, and then you started making some pretty bad mistakes as a kid. What were some of those mistakes?
I don't know if I necessarily call them mistakes. I was getting in fights, and actually I'll tell you the first time how I landed in juvenile. My dad, I had ended up being taken away from my mom by my dad, and I was living with my dad, his prostitute, and my 3 half-brothers and sisters.
Oh my gosh.
And my dad decided one day that he was going to go to England. So he leaves and just says, hey, I'm going to England for 2 weeks, I'll be back. He was actually gone a year, but he said he was going for 2 weeks, and he leaves me with the prostitute.
And you're left with a prostitute and some half-brothers?
And my half-brothers and sisters.
Oh my gosh.
And the prostitute's a horrific heroin addict. So Sunday afternoon.
Could this story get any worse?
So Sunday afternoon, she leaves. She said, I'll be back. I'm going to get a pack of cigarettes. She was gone for 3 weeks. And it was February. We were in Ohio, and my half brothers and sisters were 4, 3, and 2.
Oh my gosh.
Wednesday afternoon, I'm supposed to be in school. It's February, but I'm not going to leave my half brothers and sisters.
How old were you?
I was 12.
Okay. Whew.
And Wednesday afternoon, it hits me. We don't have any food. And so I had to tell my 4-year-old half sister, the oldest, to babysit so I can go down to the store and steal food. So I go steal food, I come back, and immediately I realize, oh my God, we don't have diapers for the 2-year-old. So I have to potty train my little brother, and I set him on the toilet. He's crying, I'm crying, and I look at him and I said, hey man, until something comes out, this is how it's going down. And so she was gone for 3 weeks, and for me, the greatest stress that I have ever felt in life, every day I worried, would they disconnect the electricity? Would they shut off the water? And I would literally worry about that hourly because I didn't know what we would do. No one knew we were there. I was supposed to be in school.
I was going to ask that, yeah.
My dad's in England. My mother doesn't know where I am because my dad had taken me from my mom. So she doesn't know where I am.
How did you guys eat those 3 weeks?
I kept stealing food.
Okay. And did you get caught eventually?
No.
Wow.
I kept stealing food. So you asked me how I ended up juvenile. I'll fast forward. Prostitute comes home 3 weeks later, and I'm 12, and I get in her face. I said, where the F have you been? She beat me so bad. And I mean, I fell to the ground, my ear's bleeding, she's kicking me, she's punching me, and I run away. I get brought back to the house, and the second beating is worse than the first.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So by the grace of God, one of my uncles picks me up the next day, my dad's brother, and he takes me to another one of my dad's girlfriend's house. And yeah, exactly, I was the same way. But what was nice was they had a decent house. She bought me some clothes, and I was eating each day. I had a little lunch money, so I was like, okay, this is great. Friday night rolls around, and she's a horrific alcoholic. And I'm looking a little too much like my dad right now.
Oh, no.
She starts beating me. I'm tired of getting beat at this point.
Yeah, of course.
I fight back. She calls the police.
Yeah.
I had to go to juvenile. And that was the first time I went to juvenile. Here's what was so...
that might have rescued you.
It did and it didn't.
Yeah.
Because here was the pain. My dad was in England. And literally only God knew where he was. My mom had no clue where I was. No one knew I was in juvenile. I was stuck. No one knew I was there.
So you couldn't get out.
I was there almost 3 months.
Wow.
And I don't care what anyone says. People need to understand this. They call it juvenile detention. It's kid prison. It's juvenile prison. When I got put in solitary confinement and I was 12 years old, and you're in this pitch black room that 2 correction officers just threw you in, and you don't know where your parents are, that is some of the most mind-numbing, scary, chaotic, like what's going to happen to me, and you're stuck in a dark room, a dark hole.
How did that not break you? I mean, it's breaking me just listening to it, but at 12 years old, I mean, how did you just not break?
My mom used to say this to me when I was a kid. We never really lived, we survived. So I was raised to know how to survive, and that's all I ever really knew was, how do you survive? How do you just keep going forward? And that mentality served me well. And so when I got out of juvenile, I ended up going back to juvenile 3 times in total. One was for fighting a kid that was making fun of me because I was homeless at one point. I used to carry a little suitcase with me. But yeah, stealing, fighting, and beating up my dad's girlfriend.
And there was no like rehabilitation effort. I mean,
no.
They just keep throwing you in juvie.
You just keep going. Now, here was the rehabilitation. And to this day, I would so much like to find this gentleman. Last time I'm in juvenile, gentleman gets down on one knee and he says, come here. And I mean, huge corrections officer. And he said, come here. And he gets in my face. He said, if you come back here again, you're going to man prison. Now, I'm 49 years old, and to this day, the term man prison just doesn't sound right. I don't want to go to man prison. I want nothing to do with that. And that single-handedly is what kept me from going back to juvenile, because I never wanted to find out what man prison looked like.
It flipped the switch for you.
It totally did. I'm like, okay, not coming back here, because they're telling me I got to go to man prison.
What was the worst experience for you in juvie? I know being in solitary confinement.
Hands down.
Just alone in there in the dark all day long?
And no one knows where you are.
You're just lost.
You're just lost.
Not even a person at that point, really.
Not even a person. You're just something in a dark room that occasionally gets fed.
That is just heart-wrenching to hear, especially at 12 years old.
It's no one knew I was there. That was the hardest thing. Like, where's my mom? Mm-hmm. Where's my dad?
Nobody's coming for you.
No one's coming. No one's coming. And no one cares.
But yet you had the will to go on.
Again, my mom taught me to survive. Mm-hmm. She used to teach me this phrase. She says, sometimes necessity has an ugly face.
Yeah.
But I have so many little phrases that, be it my mom, my dad, for all my father's shortcomings, he gave me a lot of great lessons in life that have served me to this day.
Where are your parents now?
My father passed away 3 years ago. I went to his funeral. I had not seen him in 30 plus years. Ooh. And I went to his funeral, and for all the money that man made as a pimp and drug dealer, he died flat broke. And it made my day to be able to pay for his funeral. My mother she lives in Wisconsin with my stepfather, and her health is not good. She has stage 3 or 4 Parkinson's, and so, but she still moves, and we joke with one another still, just like we did when we were poor.
That's good. So when we come back, I want to talk about what your life was like after juvie, getting your GED, and kind of starting off as an adult.
Yeah, I can't wait to the next show when we cover his big comeback story. But we did hear that one little thing we always hear at a comeback stronger story, and that's the catalyst. Who's the person who got your attention and changed your trajectory? And a lot of times it's a good person doing something good. Sometimes like this, it's a scary person scaring you. So, yeah.
Him looking at, okay, well, I've been pushing my luck, and now I just don't want to go to man prison.
Yeah, as bad as it was for him, he's a 12-year-old and he's parenting. He's having the stress of worried about electrical and water cutoff and stealing food and potty training a child, and he's got that on him, and then he's in solitary confinement, but he has this threat of something that could be worse. So it's interesting. We'll talk about how that motivated him when we come back after this.
You know what else I think makes women a little bit better at this job as trial lawyers is our ability to communicate. There's an old joke that women say 10,000 words to every 10 words that a man says. But the success in this job is based on building relationships and communicating. We're trying to present our evidence. We're trying to communicate to our clients, communicate to insurance companies, all just to get a deal done, to get our clients money for pain and suffering and lost wages and medical bills. And I think when you're a better communicator and when you're used to communicating like that, you just do a better job.
One of the unique advantages I think we have as women lawyers is, of course, other women are going to feel comfortable sharing things with us, but also find that men are often more comfortable talking to a woman about really delicate things, the things that make them feel like they're not in control and they're not doing right by their families, or they're just not who they think they should be in the world. I use every asset I've got, and empathy's a big one.
Yeah, JeVon McCormick is actually, I don't know if it's come out yet, but he is the CSO of Scribe Media. And that is a company that helps people, anybody's got a book idea in their head, he helps bring that to fruition and make that a reality for people. And he laughs about it because he says, I have a GED, yet I'm head of this publishing house. So how funny is that?
I love it. In next episode, you're going to hear his comeback story and a little bit more about his work history. But he also was the CEO of a software company, and he never knew coding.
Yeah.
So you know, this episode was very focused on his backstory, and it made my heart heavy to hear what he went through. And I know that the story gets better and his life turns around, but the reality that so many children are living in that same situation that he was in just makes me sad, and especially during the pandemic. People are struggling and that
isolation factor that he talked about.
Yes, and they can't go to school, some of them, and so they're not getting that hot meal, and it's just, it's tough.
We hear about things called ACEs, the adverse childhood incidences, and I'm sure I've talked about these before, but you look at children and you look at their early childhood development and you see how many of those they have. And it could be something as simple as, and common, as a parent getting divorced or splitting up. It could be relocating, moving, attending a different school every year is considered, you know, a disruptive part in the child's life. You know, geographical relocation, that sort of thing. When I was a social worker working in schools, I would see just the anxiety level in children who really weren't sure what bus to get on to go home today. Am I going to this house? Am I going to that house? Who's picking me up? You know, do they like each other? Am I going to be in the middle of their conflict? And still, not to this level.
Yes.
You know, this guy's got an ace hitting him in the face every day from the minute he's born. I don't even know what makes a person keep going.
He's in the cold, in the winter, worried about electricity, having to potty train a 2-year-old as a 12-year-old.
Yeah, with
just incredible.
Being parented though also by, you know, a mother who was herself an orphan, who was never, like Carrie pointed out, adopted. It's one thing to get a child all the way through, you know, foster care into adulthood, but when they don't actually get adopted by and attached to a family, you know, they just feel like they're just floating, they're just unattached in the world. And so you think about what sort of maternal instincts she would have to parent him. I don't know how she did it. Because it sounds like, from what we've heard so far about JeVon, his mother was a good force in his life, despite her obvious limitations and what she was able to do for him. His father, you know, just you know, sounds like he just came in and just brought a firestorm with him wherever he went and just left chaos in his wake.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, and this young man, you know, he has the wherewithal to know, I don't have control over whether the lights are on and there's water, and I don't have control over, I can only steal so much. What happens if I get, you know, caught? Who's going to watch out for him? Back then, you know, children would get taken away from parents when they were unsupervised like that, and children were very well aware of that. And so to protect their parents, they would not ask for help. You know, you would think, why don't they go to a neighbor? Why don't they mention it to a teacher? Why doesn't a truant officer come and check and see where he is? But, you know, people learn to stay under the radar to protect themselves.
And he kept saying nobody knew where we were.
Nobody was missing him.
He felt like he was totally alone.
Nobody was missing him. But we're going to have another episode on this, and you're going to hear great things that he has done, and I hope you stick with us next time. Follow us on Facebook and join our Come Back Stronger group. We'll see you next time.
No person wants to go through this. No amount of money is going to make someone want to go through a car accident and go through all this pain and suffering and treatment. A client that's hurt has had MRIs that show that they're hurt, and the insurance company goes, no, not our problem. And so you have to fight them for it when the client wouldn't want to go through any of this anyway.
No. The insurance companies know that. They know this person's already hurting. This person knows they're up against people that they're not equipped to fight. And they know that if they just pound on them and just maintain that position, they'll eventually wear them down. Not if you got the right lawyer.
I can't tell you how many times I have demanded that an insurance company pay my client the maximum amount, the policy limit, and they make a couple $1,000 offer. I turn around, I sue them the next day, then they're begging me to accept the policy limit, just like that.
That's because they know that they're conducting business in bad faith.
Yeah.